It's now Stare into Space with Dylan Storey from the Auckland Stardom Observatory. Thanks very much to them. Dylan, welcome back for 2012.
Yes, thank you, Wammo. Happy New Year, etc.
Happy New Year to you. Not a lot of stargazing, of course, happening over that break, particularly in the North Island with all the cloud cover and rain and whatnot. So even if you got to your holiday spot up north or wherever it was pretty hard to see the stars, right?
Yeah, well, I didn't get much sky viewing in anyway.
No. Oh, well.
Yeah.
I imagine it would have been pretty good in the deep south, though.
Yeah, apparently they've had a drought down there, haven't they?
So some good star watching. But there's been a whole lot of news over that holiday period as well, coming from space exploration, NASA, some major discoveries. Tell us about all these Earth-like planets that they reckon that they are out there.
Yeah, well, space news doesn't stop for the holidays. So the Kepler satellite, which we talked a lot about last year and probably the year before, is always discovering planets, and must have been just before December or something that it discovered the first conclusive evidence of an Earth-like planet. And so they've had another recent haul since then, which is 50 new planets, including 16 around the similar size as the Earth, similar type of planet to the Earth.
Yeah. And
sort of the facts and figures are starting to come in for the number of discoveries it's making versus the number of stars it's watching. And the conclusion is, I guess the important thing here is that what it's starting to look like is that scientists are starting to be able to say it's probable that most stars have planets, if not lots of planets.
Right.
So, I mean, what's been suspected for a long time, but this is the first hint of any sort of evidence, is that there's probably billions and billions of planets out there.
So what?
Probably so many planets throughout the galaxy.
Which is hard to get your head around, obviously. But what are the implications of that?
Well, I mean, the imagination can run wild, really. There's all sorts of, there's planets with all sorts of different extreme conditions. They could be very big, very cold, very small, very hot. But the thing that we're interested in is something like Earth. So we know that life exists here, so can it exist somewhere else?
Yeah. The chances have got to be pretty good. Yeah, statistically, as you say, it's got to be pretty good.
Yeah. The chances are pretty good, exactly. So we're looking like, in the coming generation of astronomical exploration, we're looking like we're going to be facing the scenario that there are a number of Earth-like planets out there, many. And so I guess the possibility that, we're going to be looking for signs of life on other planets more specifically it's going to be very real.
Within our lifetime, Dylan?
I would put my money there. Yep.
Okay.
I'd say we'd have the technology to discover evidence of biological molecules in atmospheres around other planets in, I don't know, so next 10, 20 years.
Crikey. Using technology like the Kepler telescope.
Yeah, using technology like this, perhaps something like gravitational lensing as well. But yeah, generally just more and more precise telescopes looking more and more carefully at planets occulting their stars and looking at the difference in the spectrum of the light that comes from the star when a planet passes in front of it, therefore being able to tell what's in the planet's atmosphere. That's the most likely way.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty exciting, and that's obviously got a lot of space news addicts really excited. What else has happened?
Last year also we talked about, the end of last year we were talking about the Russian Phobos grunt mission, which was on its way to Mars. It was on its way to Mars' moon Phobos to collect samples. Its second rocket booster failed and it got stuck in near-Earth orbit. It was expected to crash straight down to Earth, but somehow another malfunction happened and some of its turning boosters fired and it sort of boosted it into a higher orbit. Still expected to crash.
Yeah.
It did. sometime last week. It crashed to Earth. Luckily, over the Pacific, no parts of it survived the descent to Earth, so it wasn't like those big things where that crashed down last year. Those big weather satellites that broke apart and some pieces landed in the ocean. This completely broke up in the atmosphere. So
surely some chunks would have landed.
No, I don't think so.
Oh. There was a lot of fuel on board, I understand, as well.
Yeah. So, I believe that what happened there is the fact that no physical solid parts survived. That means that the fuel, like the liquid, just like a solid, just actually sort of burnt up in the upper atmosphere due to the heat of friction, and sort of no chemical traces of it were left. So there's no, it burnt up in the upper layers of atmosphere where it's so thin that no liquid could survive. It just turned into its base chemical constituents or whatever.
Hey, talking about things coming crashing down to Earth, did you see the news about the confirmed Mars rock that
landed in the Sahara?
Yeah, Morocco region.
Some desert, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
In quite sizable chunks as well.
Yeah, well, it's long been suspected that a lot of meteorites that have been found have come from Mars, but it's very difficult to prove because, I mean, how can you tell that something's come from Mars? But basically what's happened is that the chemical composition of certain space rocks seems very similar to that of samples taken from the rovers that have landed on Mars. So you can deduce that they have come from Mars rather than other areas of space. You can't prove it, but it's likely.
Yeah.
And the difference with this one is that it hasn't been on Earth for that long, so it hasn't been contaminated, because it was a lot of reports seeing it land a few months ago. A lot of people saw it. I think it was even captured on video. It's streaking down, landing in the desert.
Yeah.
And so now they've found the rock, and tests show that it's probably one of these rocks that's probably from Mars. So that's the closest we've got to getting a physical sample from Mars.
And dealers have already sold all of the pieces to various collectors.
Yeah, I know. Amazing, eh?
Yeah.
There was that one, you remember it crashed into a house in Ellerslie. It must have been...
That's right.
Must have been about 10 years ago.
It's scary, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. All the museums and universities wanted it, but the collectors bidded higher, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's worth more than gold, because it's far more rare, obviously.
Yeah.
So they reckon that something big had hit Mars a long, long time ago, and that sent a whole lot of rocks into space.
Yeah, broke a whole lot of fragments off it. The impact caused chunks to reach Mars's escape velocity, and off it goes, and it'll probably orbit the Sun in some orbit between Mars and Earth for a couple of tens of millions of years, and then sooner or later certain chunks come near Earth and get sucked in by our gravity. There we go. We've got a sample from Mars.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's just some of the space news over the past few weeks. Of course, you can check out more at the Auckland Stardome and stare into the night sky. Some good weather out there now for doing that sort of thing. And
exactly. Yeah. Two planets visible at the moment.
Yeah.
Jupiter up there, bright to the north. The two brightest things in the sky at the moment are planets. So if you look just after it gets dark. Jupiter there to the north, Venus to the west, shining very bright. You can't miss them. They're brighter than everything else.
And Melancholia, I noticed, just coming into the night sky there as well.
Exactly. Well, that's a whole different subject, isn't it?
Indeed. You might see that one get a little bit bigger over time. Thanks very much, Dylan. Cheers.
Thanks, Wammo.
Dylan Storey on Twitter as well, if you want to continue the conversation.